Hey guys, Metal Jesus here. Now today I have something very cool to share with you, and that is a heavily modified and completely pimped out Sega DREAMCAST. This thing looks pretty crazy, right? Well, all the tweaks and modifications done to it literally add up to over $800. So, what does it do, and is it worth it? Let's take a look. Now before we get started, I do want to mention that the whole idea of this video came because I was emailed by this guy named Matt Forrester, who is a console modder, and he sent me a video of this up and running and asked me if I wanted to do a video on it. And of course I saw it and I was blown away and I said yes. But in the interest of transparency, I want to let you know that I paid for all of the hardware and parts in this video, and then he gave me a break on all of the labor. The first thing we talked about is what custom aftermarket shell we should use. Now, he originally mentioned that we could do some LEDs, and because he said that, I was like, oh, well then we should definitely go for clear. Something that was a nice surprise is this Metal Jesus custom badge here. This is a really nice little touch. I didn't know he was gonna do this, and I guess he got inspired by my logo and 3D printed this, and yeah, I thought it was pretty cool. Let's go ahead and pop it open and check out the changes done on the inside. It's hard to believe that the Dreamcast is now 20 years old, and so one of the first things that he does is systematically go through the printed circuit board and replace all the capacitors with brand new ones and higher quality ones. This is going to ensure that this Dreamcast runs for yet another 20 years. The Dreamcast is region locked, which is a total bummer because so many great games only came out in Japan. Now, previously I was able to get past this by doing a disk swap method, but for this, he actually pulled off the old BIOS and then replaced it with a region-free BIOS. He removed the old power supply that's in the Dreamcast and then replaced it with a new one. Now, the reason why he did that is because the new power supply is basically of a higher quality, it does cleaner power, and also it should make everything run a little bit cooler. But that new power supply has a new plug type, so he had to replace that. But a nice little touch is that he actually 3D printed the notch that attaches to, so that way you can actually see through it with the LEDs. Another thing he did to keep the system cooler is replace the fan, which is quieter than the original. But that introduced a new problem because it's a little bit taller than the original fan, and this new one actually interferes with the open mechanism on the top of the case. So if you look closely on the top of the case, he actually had to use a third-party solution. I guess it's a 3D printed piece that has a little notch right there in the open button mechanism to allow that fan to basically have room to work. There's an LED driver, and I guess this comes in two different varieties. You can get a touch version of it that'll allow you to control the LEDs with touch, or you can install a Bluetooth option, which is what he went for here. Now what's cool about this is that you can use an iPhone or Android device and then an app to have much greater control over how these LEDs look and feel and some of the special presentations that they offer. He did something really cool here that I wanted to point out. See this wavy kind of 3D printed piece of plastic here on the front? Well, he did that so he could basically line up the LEDs perfectly so that you could see them through the controller ports on the front. It's little details like that that are pretty cool. Notice that we do have the original drive still here. Now what's cool is that he re-greased all the gears and moving parts, as well as replaced all the capacitors in it. Now the reason why we did that is because, as you guys know, I am a game collector and I have a pretty decent Dreamcast game collection. So for this one, I actually wanted to be able to, keep it old school and be able to play my actual CDs. But you could absolutely put in an optical drive emulator, and that's a service that he does provide, by the way. And that would allow you to basically just put, disk images on an SD card and put your whole entire collection on here. But like I mentioned, I want to keep this somewhat old school, so that's why we're using the actual physical media. Oh, and here's something I'm so happy he did. He removed that old soldered on battery and then replaced it with a socket. So now when the battery goes dead, I can either use a rechargeable one or just go to the store and buy a new one. This is so nice. He also replaced the fuse that sits underneath the front of the unit, which I guess sometimes can blow out. I guess it's a real pain in the butt. So for this one, he actually installed a resettable fuse. So if it blows a fuse next time, all I have to do is just power it off and then turn it back on. As you follow my pointer, you can see that he has the LED strips all throughout the inside here. They're really gonna light up all angles of this thing and make it look really cool. Looking underneath the lid, you see that it's just ringed with LEDs, and they go around the outside and then also on the inside around the drive. He's not holding back on those LEDs. This is meant to get people's attention. And this is what it looks like when you first turn it on. It's in a demo mode and it's running through random presets. I think there's like over 100 of them here. It's going from blinking to changing from one shade to another. It'll go in circles. It just does all these crazy patterns. It's mesmerizing to watch. And like I said previously, one of the neat little touches is the front. You can actually see the LEDs changing colors and doing their patterns through the controller ports. Now, if you want control over the LEDs, no problem. There's actually a QR code on the bottom of the device. You just scan it with your smartphone, you download the app, and then once in the app, you basically connect to it via Bluetooth. And in there, you can change basically anything that you want. You can make it solid colors, you can change the brightness. It's pretty much endless as to the possibilities here. You can even have the LEDs react to music that is on your phone, or if you're brave, turn on the microphone and maybe recreate one of your favorite YouTube theme songs. Now, the big feature of this device, and definitely the most expensive part of it, is the installation of the DCHDMI kit. This is a dedicated FPGA solution that's directly soldered onto your Dreamcast, actually underneath the main circuit board there. You can't actually see it from this angle because, like I said, it's underneath, but you can see its flex cable right there. And I'll put on the screen some photos that he took while he was actually installing it. It doesn't look like it's a job for someone who is an amateur when it comes to soldering. But if you are comfortable soldering yourself, then I do believe they sell these kits separately, so you can go that route. And then on the back of the Dreamcast, you'll see that there is a micro HDMI port there. And the thing about the DCHDMI solution is that it is 100% digital solution, both for the video as well as the audio. That's what makes it stand out from some of the other solutions out there. Kind of like the Ultra HDMI solution that I talked about previously with the Nintendo 64, this one is also tapping directly onto the Dreamcast motherboard and grabbing that digital signal and then outputting it in the best, highest quality possible. And you guys are watching some footage here, and immediately to me, it was just mind-blowing how crystal clear this was. Again, it really reminded me of the Ultra HDMI mod I did with my N64. It just looks so clear, so perfect on my big HD television. And all this particular footage is outputting at 1080p at 60 frames per second, so I haven't altered it in any way. But you can mess around with the settings. Let me show you those. So to bring up the menu, you hold down the left trigger, the right trigger, XA, and then start. On the main menu, you have output resolution, which we're going to check out here in a second. Advanced video settings, scan lines if you like to turn those on or off. I typically leave them off. Video mode settings, which we're also going to check out. Firmware upgrade, Wi-Fi setup, and then test info. Under output resolution, you have VGA because the Dreamcast supports that, and I believe that is 640 by 480. And then you have 480p, 960p, and then 1080p. So I typically left this at 1080p because my HD television just seems to work with that best. I mentioned that the Dreamcast supports VGA output, and most of the time I actually leave it on this Force VGA option here because 95%, maybe 99% of the games actually support VGA and look fantastic with this device. But there are a couple games that I really like to play that don't work with that, and so you can use the second option here called Cable Detect to allow you to run those. And then here is Bang.io running with that Cable Detect turned on. So that's a nice option to have if you happen to have a few of those games that just don't work with VGA. Also, here is Gunbird 2 also with that as well. So both of these games by default wouldn't support VGA output, but again, it's nice to have the option to force them to start. here are the options under the advanced video settings, and you have de-interlacer there and some other things that honestly I just don't really mess with, but you can come in here and play with them if you're looking for a little bit more nuanced settings. A cool feature of the DCHDMI kit is that it allows you to upgrade the firmware over a Wi-Fi connection. This is actually super cool and something that honestly I wish all of these systems did. So basically, yeah, you just connect it to your Wi-Fi and you can every once in a while just check to see if there's a new firmware version. They are still working on it and adding new features all the time. Now I know that these internal DC HDMI solutions are not cheap, so let's go ahead and compare it to something that is cheap, like the Pound solution. These Pound cables, I believe, are $30, and you know, they are a quick plug-and-play solution for people who want to get HDMI out of their Dreamcast and play it on their HD television. But as you can see by this footage, there is no contest. I mean, the DC HDMI is just night and day better than the Pound cables. And I know that's not a fair comparison because obviously the Pound cables are cheap and some people just don't like the quality of them. I totally get it, but I do wanted to, you know, do this comparison. I also have the Retrobit VGA adapter as well, and so we can look at that footage and compare it. And it looks pretty good, but again, I would lean more towards, you know, the DC HDMI solution. I mean, it just looks that much better, that much cleaner. Now, I have heard that if you happen to have the FrameMeister or open source scan converter, that those solutions actually do a very good job, but I don't know, I tend to lean to this kind of all-in-one solution. It's just easier. That said, I do happen to have the new M Classic video processor, which does a bunch of upscaling as well as anti-aliasing and other video effects. So I put that on the output of the HDMI. And so here is Soul Calibur running with the M Classic attached. And as you can see, it's doing a bit of anti-aliasing, and yeah, I think it looks pretty good. And then here is Star Wars Episode 1 Pod Racer, also with the M Classic. Now, I did this because there are some people out there that have these devices in their game room and in their video setup, so I wanted to show you what that would be like. If you want to go more in depth with the DC HDMI solutions, there are actually really good video reviews out there, specifically from Digital Foundry and also My Life in Gaming, and I'll put a link up in the corner there. All right, guys, well, that is a quick look at, well, probably one of the craziest and coolest pimped out retro consoles in my game collection so far. And obviously in this video, we went a little overboard with the different options that you can do on your Dreamcast, but we wanted to show people what is possible. And Matt will do as few or as many of these as you want, so definitely check out his website. It is dragonshoardegaming.com. And if you have any questions for Matt, go ahead and post down below, and Matt's going to be monitoring those comments. All right, guys, well, thank you very much for watching. Thank you for subscribing, and take care.